This is the moment we've been waiting for. Since the hours we gathered together on a night in November, painfully aware of the long fight ahead. Since the day we decided that we would not give in and grab the hand of our nearest neighbor and march to the streets. Since the moment millions joined the chorus to tell the world we would not stand for injustice against any one of us. We marched, we rallied, we fought, we steeled ourselves, and we rose up as corruption tore through the White House like a wildfire. We rose up as our country changed in ways that were unrecognizable, and we showed up for every single battle. While those at the top stoked the fires of division, each day Americans made the choice to come together. We are still in the streets, we are still fighting, knowing that what we fight for matters more than anything. And this is the moment we've been waiting for. This is our opportunity to reject the politics of hate, chaos, division, and change the course of history. This November, we have an opportunity to elect a leader who will join us as we build an America for all. The moment where we grab our family, our friends, and show up to change the world.
Politics and Flows Big Ideas Series, episode 14. We are solidly a teenager now. Wow, can you believe that? And as fate would have it, we're 14 days from the election, or from election day. It's election season. The election ends in 14 days. It's election day every day until the 3rd of November. Let's get that right. So we're 2 days from the presidential debate where they decided to mute microphones when one person was speaking. I mean, that probably should have been done the first time anyway. But, the president, he doesn't represent anything dignified, gracious, or courteous. So he'll probably speak over the mic on Thursday, but we'll see what happens when we get there. Early voting totals are setting nationwide records, which brings a mixture of excitement and terror because many of us have trauma related to 2016. So let me say a couple things about that. First, it's not 2016 at all, right? The only thing that they have in common is they have a 2-0 in front of it, right? So we're in a pandemic and so while we do need to not take things for granted, it's not the same race, right? So don't try not to be caught in the past when we need to be doing all we can in the present. Let us learn the lessons that from the mistakes we made last round and harvest the bounty that exists when we do the work to bring this election home. Let us take nothing for granted, like I said, and do all we can to bring everyone to a new level of civic engagement, not only in this season, but going forward, because voting, y'all, is just the beginning. We have a lot of work to do on the other side of the election. So don't say, whoo, it's over, because in many ways, it's just beginning. And I don't say that to cause terror. I say that because A, it's the truth, and B, civic engagement is a practice. It's a lifelong thing. It's not just I voted, got a sticker, and peaced out. That's not what we're talking about here. Because the biggest problem, like I said, of the orientation of just 14 more days is that it predisposes us crashing on the other side of the election. And we have to stay equally as vigilant, because if the president contests the election, we must remain steadfast as a multi-generational group of regular citizens seeking to make sure that every vote is counted. And as a reminder, it takes time for votes to be counted and elections results to be certified. So let's keep ourselves away. It's not going to be like it was in 2016. We may not know for a couple of days, and that's normal. That's called mathematics. That's called counting the votes. So instant results, touch screens, and calling states, that may not be the case this go around. The only way that we can move beyond that is to turn out the votes so overwhelmingly in places like Arizona, Ohio, Texas, Georgia, Michigan, Florida, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Nebraska, that the Electoral College math becomes a democratic tsunami, a sea change represented by tectonic shifts in our foundation as wholesale change manifests. This Sunday, we'll have our third installment of the Your Vote is Power live stream series featuring movement leaders, a Q&A session with Mark Ruffalo, Ayanna Pressley, Cory Booker, Andy Slavitt, and special guests I'm not at liberty to discuss. I'll also be co-hosting that episode with my colleague, Chris Percy, bringing the style and flavor of this series to the Your Vote is Power program. These live stream events are the 2020 incarnation of MoveOn's Ready to Resist calls in 2017 and the Resist to Win calls in 2018, where tens upon tens of thousands of people came in community to be inspired, informed, and mobilized to do the important work ahead of us, to awaken our democracy from the nightmare of the Trump regime and set us on a path of achieving our dreams that we have for a government that is effective, kind, compassionate, and that serves the needs of all, not just the privileged few. You tell I used to work with Bernie Sanders. In keeping with the spirit of mentioned above about vigilance, I must mention the Senate confirmation process, which is about to take place next week if McConnell has the votes. We assume that things are going to turn out a certain way, but if 2020 has taught us anything, we just don't know. We have no idea what's going to go on. So anything is possible. So many senators who are tempted to vote the wrong way, we need to keep on them. And if they do vote the wrong way, we need to remind them the following week at the polls. So if they do us wrong for this confirmation, we need to take their jobs the week after. It's just that simple. That's why keeping pressure on them is so important. So we pressure them until the vote, and then we vote them out. So, and let them think they can get away with this. We must make them pay with constituent pressure and at the ballot box. They're dithering about COVID relief. The Senate has done nothing about COVID relief. Like, we're at new peaks. We're in really interesting times, and the Senate has just left their jobs, and they've abdicated responsibility. So all I'll say in closing about that is this: like, in addition to calling and protesting and demanding these senators honor the will of the people, if they choose not to do so, do not throw your hands up in cynicism. Like, vote them out of office. And this begins with Lindsey Graham. Again, Tom Tillis, Cory Gardner, Joni Ernst, Susan Collins. They gotta go. As a former senior staffer of the most message disciplined Paul in American history, Bernie Sanders, I must remind you of our Mobilize to Win program, so everyone can plug in to reach the networks and to reach high potential voters. So whether you vote by mail, drop off your early ballot. I got my ballot today, so I will be voting tonight. Or you vote at the polls on election day, your vote should be counted and your voice should be heard. So check out moveon.org/mobilize to win for more information about these efforts and to sign up to receive communications ahead of election day via email or text message. Or as always, text "We Got Us" to 668-366 to get involved in these efforts. And a reminder, please put your comments in the chat because we do monitor them and we're here for you. Without further delay, it is my honor to bring on our guest, Kara Eastman. Kara Eastman is running for Congress in Nebraska. She won the 2020 Democratic primary by 20,000 votes and is currently set off to face the same opponent she had in 2018. Her race has become one of the most watched in the country. And if elected, she would be the first woman elected to Congress in Nebraska's 2nd Congressional District. Eastman has more than 20 years of experience leading nonprofit organizations and serving local communities. She is currently the president of Kara Eastman Partners, a small business that provides consulting services in the nonprofit sector. An MSW in social work, she started at the Omaha Healthy Kids Alliance, OCA, and grew it from a small startup lead poisoning prevention organization to a nationally recognized, award-winning nonprofit that has raised more than $13 million to support green, safe, and healthy housing in Omaha. Eastman and her husband, Scott, live in Omaha with their daughter, Sabina, who is a sophomore at Pitzer. In her free time, Eastman is on the hunt to find the best chicken wings in Nebraska. Kara and I connected in Washington, D.C. and have remained in touch. We've practiced yoga together, and she's on my list of people that I regularly check in with to see how they're doing. I think she's brilliant, courageous, thoughtful, and I look forward to sharing time with her today as we wind down the Big Ideas series. So welcome to Politics and Flows Big Ideas Edition, Democratic congressional candidate for Nebraska 2nd District, Kara Eastman. Kara, welcome.
Thank you. It's such an honor to be here.
Before we dive in, I have to ask you, how's the family and how are y'all holding up right now?
We're good. Our daughter was sent back from college, but so she's been home since March, but she and some friends who also go to Pitzer are here working on the campaign and distance learning together. So that's been good. And my husband's just working really hard on the campaign and things are good. We're rolling with this COVID thing and 2 weeks left until the most important election of our life.
And tell me a little bit about Nebraska's 2nd District, right? Because when people hear Nebraska, the last thing they think about is Democratic politics, unless you're an electoral nerd like me and you see that when Nebraska splits its vote, it's usually around Omaha. So tell me a little bit about Nebraska's 2nd District.
Yeah, we're 98% urban suburban. So this is Omaha and the district and the county that we're in, which is Douglas County, and then a little bit of the county to the south of us. that was gerrymandered in 2011. So it's more heavily Republican, but we are a really diverse district, about 13% African American, 11% Latino. We have a large refugee population from South Sudan, from Somalia. We have streetlights and ethnic food. It's a real city here, Omaha, Nebraska.
Streetlights and ethnic, I love that. Now I want you to talk a little bit more about why you ran in the first place and what compelled you to run again, because it shows me that you're committed and or should be committed. Just kidding. So tell me a little bit more about why you ran in 2018 and why you ran again in 2020.
Yeah. I originally decided to run because in 2016, my mother was diagnosed with cancer for the 5th time and prescribed a $2,500 pill that she couldn't afford to take. And it really rattled me and my family and kind of set me down this path of trying to figure out how in the United States of America, a woman on Medicare could be dying from cancer and prescribed such an outrageous prescription cost, like just unbelievable. And we can talk about why that happens later. But so originally I decided to do this because I didn't want anybody to have to go through what my mom went through. And because frankly, I've been working in nonprofits for over 20 years and have seen just the lack of political will that there is for actually addressing some of our most serious problems in our country. And then in 2018, I lost the general election by just 1.9%. It was one of the closest races in the country. And when we saw the numbers come in, when we saw how close it was, my mom was a fighter. She taught me never to give up. And a friend of mine, Daniel Biss, who had run for governor of Illinois against J.B. Pritzker and against a Kennedy in the primary, reminded me, Donald Trump is still president. We can't give up. So here I am, not giving up.
And tell me a little bit more about your nonprofit life, right? Because what I love to do in these interviews is to bring like a little bit of your work history and your personality out in a long form way. So tell me a little bit about like your nonprofit work and how you took that startup to the national prominence, but about getting led out of home. So tell me a little bit about that.
So my background is mostly in startup and struggling nonprofits. And when we moved to Omaha in 2006, I was hired to start Omaha Healthy Kids. So I was basically given some seed money and a board of directors, most of whom were appointees of the Nebraska delegation. So a lot of Republicans. And they said, go fix the lead issue in Omaha, which we have a number of issues. We're the largest residential Superfund site because of lead contamination in our soil. We have 17,000 lead service lines. That's the water line from the house to the street. And we have 84,000 homes built before 1978, which is the year that lead-based paint was banned. Lead is a neurotoxin and causes IQ deficits, behavioral problems, and even criminal behavior later in life for kids. And so we set off, at first it was just me, creating a comprehensive plan to address childhood lead poisoning. And as we were doing that and going into homes and fixing lead, we saw that there were a number of other issues inside these homes: cockroaches, asthma triggers, issues with energy inefficiency, things that we knew needed to be addressed as well. I'm a social worker. We're trained to look at things holistically. And so it made sense for us to expand. So we expanded our mission to include green and safe and healthy housing in 2010. And as we were doing this, we started bringing in millions of dollars from national grants, from grants from the government, grants from private foundations, partnering with businesses, partnering with unions, and just gained a lot of traction and became nationally recognized as one of the thought leaders and the best practices for doing this kind of work locally.
And so it's beautiful. And I love the fact that the beautiful thing about what you're talking about is, so I work on the Hill, as you know. I'm a Move On's Congressional Affairs guy, among other things. I wear many hats. And this Kangol I'm wearing for Kamala Harris's birthday today. So the Kangol and the FAMU jersey. I know she went to Howard, I know that, but you can't see Chuck, so you can see my style. But wearing many hats, that policy lens needs to be brought into the Congress, right? There are a lot of lawyers who are just looking for loophole, not all of them, but loopholes, whereas you have a holistic lens and a holistic understanding, which I think is important, especially given the struggles that we have right now. So thank you for that. And what I love most about my job is getting to know you all as people. I mean, like you and I talked about your family. We've talked yogic philosophy. We took a storytelling workshop together. But for the benefit of everyone else, how will you avoid turning into every other politician that goes to Washington, D.C.?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people running for Congress talk a good game, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to work across the aisle. I'm going to be bipartisan. I'm going to get things accomplished. But it's funny, the number one question I get, which I think is very telling, is how are you going to avoid becoming corrupt? And I think that it's fascinating that that's what people think when they think of Congress. So one of the ways that I've demonstrated to people that I will do that is by rejecting corporate PAC money. I think that that's a step in the right direction. I'm the first candidate for a position like this in Nebraska to do that, and did it not because I wasn't going to get any. Like, it's very easy to say, like, oh, I'll reject corporate PAC money when no corporations are going to give me money. But I've actually been in the room, and it was hilarious because this was, I think, after the primary in 2018. My campaign manager and I went to DC, and I met with the head of a corporation who said, well, candidates say that, but once they get in, they take the money. You're going to do that, right? And I said, no, that would be lying. Like, I'm not going to lie to the people in my district. And we left the meeting, and Dave was jumping up and down saying, you actually did it. You just rejected corporate PAC money. Like, it was, and I think he was kind of nervous. Like, what's she going to do?
Right.
So I think that's one way that you can demonstrate it. I mean, also, like, I've been working in nonprofit for over 20 years. I have a degree in social work. I didn't set out to have a position of power in government. And so I believe that the United States government should be a mission-based organization, just like every other place that I've worked. And that means transparency, that means ethics, that means proving your return on investment. And so I think I can take a lot of the things that I learned in the nonprofit world and bring that to Congress.
I love what you just said in terms of it being a mission-based organization. And I have an MBA. So anytime anyone talks about return on investment, like, that's my language. Like, there are a lot of people who don't understand. You know, I've been in policy meetings where I'm like, that's a great policy. How are we going to pay for it? Right. And I just think that's an important question to ask, especially in progressive circles. So I'm normally that person. So I love the way that you mentioned that in your orientation. So taking that one step further, tell me why rejecting corporate PAC money is such a big deal, not just for you individually, but collectively. And because I'm a former civics teacher, and now that we have this many new people voting, we should use this as a teachable moment. So why is rejecting corporate PAC money such a big deal?
Yeah. And I think this is a complex issue that isn't talked about very much. So let's break it down.
Yeah.
Here's how politics works. So I talked about this $2,500 pill. Why does that happen? That a pill would cost that much when we know people go to Canada, people go to Mexico from the United States, and they get prescriptions at a tenth of the price, if not lower. Well, so if we were to think of a politician, we'll a random politician. Let's say my opponent, Don Bacon. He has taken over $800,000 from corporate PACs, over $200,000 this cycle from health insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies. So politicians get money from corporate PACs, and the difference between getting money from, say, a corporate PAC, like big pharma company, and then, or say the Sierra Club, because I do get money from organizational PACs. So think of the bottom line difference, right? The Sierra Club is trying to save the planet, make sure we have clean air and water, protect wildlife. Big pharma, pharmaceutical companies, their bottom line is one thing: making money for themselves, for their CEOs, for their shareholders, for their stockholders. So that's a big difference. And then what happens is, when somebody like Don Bacon gets that money, he votes for legislation that benefits those corporate interests over the rest of us. And oftentimes those bills that he is either introducing or co-sponsoring are written by those corporations. And I think that is very telling when we see that the Republican tax bill that was passed, where 83% of that ultimately benefits the top 1% of this country. And they're out there telling everybody, no, your taxes went down if you're in the middle class. I've met a couple of people who say that they benefited from this, but the majority of people I talk to say their taxes actually went up, people in the middle class. And then I talk to a lot of wealthy people who say their taxes went down when they didn't need it. And we also know that corporations, large corporations in this country, are not paying their fair share. So I think that this is where we need to really look at the current system. And I think that there are right now maybe 60 members of Congress who have rejected corporate PAC money. That's a big jump from a few years ago where it was only 6. But it's not just Republicans. Democrats do this too. But I think it is a signal to say, I want to end the corruption that we're seeing in politics and in our government.
Love that, and love the integrity with which you stand, because I say this often, most of the people who've been on this show are in tight races and in tough districts. So it's harder to be progressive leaning in a district that's that way. So like, thank you for your integrity. And before we came on air, we talked a little bit about COVID. So tell me, how is the COVID situation and the coronavirus impacting Nebraska, and what is your opponent doing about it?
Well, when everything started shutting down in the United States, Nebraska was actually doing pretty well. And within the last week, we've become one of the top 3 states in the country for new COVID cases. We had about 5,400 new cases in the last week.
Wow. This
is unbelievable. We have a governor who has refused to have a mask mandate, who has reopened things way too early. We were never really even fully shut down. And my opponent actually put out a television ad where he made fun of mask wearing, as if it's some sort of liberal thing, like, oh, wear a mask. And frankly, has done things where I think he's just proven that he's just not good at this job. He was not able to get the appropriate amount of CARES Act money into Omaha, which is the largest city in the district. We have a slight population difference from Atlanta. Atlanta got a lot more money than we did. We just learned that, he was touting the fact that he sponsored some legislation back in November that was to help get masks produced. It actually gave immunity to corporations that produce masks. And now he's touting like, look, I was forward thinking. I'm like, well, if you were forward thinking, that's the first thing you did was decide that you were going to project ahead that someday we might have a pandemic, and you were going to protect a corporation before you would protect any of us. So it's been awful, to be honest. I mean, I'm really worried. The weather's starting to break here, and I'm worried about what happens to individuals who are struggling, small businesses that are really struggling, local independent theaters, restaurants, cafes, bars. I mean, we're going to be in trouble if we don't elect some new leaders right now.
And tell me a little bit more about what economic recovery looked like for you. So like, tell me a little bit more about what should be done that's not being done.
Well, one, I mean, Congress has got to get their act together and get some relief out there immediately. We don't have time for them to continue the way that they have. And so if we look at even, local independent restaurants are near and dear to my heart. That's one of my favorite things to do with my family and my friends. Over the summer, Congressman Earl Blumenauer from Oregon contacted me and told me that he wasn't able to get any Republicans. We're an all Republican delegation here in Nebraska. Not one of our claims to fame, but that he wasn't able to get anybody to sign on to the Restaurants Act that would specifically target those groups. We held a media event. We brought some local independent restaurant owners together. That night, Don Bacon signed on to the Restaurants Act. But he just voted against the HEROES Act that included the Restaurants Act. We have to start by getting relief into people's hands immediately. That means individuals who have lost their jobs. That means families who are now trying to figure out who's going to go back to work because one person has to stay home with the kids. This is for small mom and pop businesses. I don't, you can define a small business as my opponent seems to do as a business that's raking in millions of dollars. I'm talking about like these legacy restaurants that have been owned and operated by somebody's grandmother that they now have taken over. These are the people that need the help the most. What are we going to do about the, evictions that are coming? What do landlords in this community do? And I think that there has, and then there's all the other problems with the public health issue of not mandating masks, not having contact tracing, not having universal testing. I mean, there's so many things that we need to be doing right now. And I can't believe that we really don't have a plan. And if we don't get Donald Trump out of office and Donald Bacon out of office, I don't see a plan to fix this coming. And this winter is going to be brutal.
Yeah, I mean, it seems as though, especially from the Senate Republican caucus, so like the House passed the HEROES Act like 4 months ago. Like the Senate hasn't done anything with that. So the Senate Republican caucus they'd rather push a Supreme Court nominee than do anything related to to coronavirus. But you can't wish away a pandemic, man. Like you can't just be like, it's, when you were a kid and your parents would say something to you and you would hide your face and like pretend like you're hiding. Like you can't do that with a pandemic. You got to be like, okay, and step and lean in and do something. And the other thing that I think that people are wishing would go away, like the coronavirus, is racial justice. Like people just wish that we would stop talking about this stuff. I mean, it's clearly near and dear to my heart for all the reasons that one might imagine. But tell me a little bit more about like what does racial justice look like for you and your community, especially given everything that we've been through this year?
Well, and this is something that I've been working on for my entire career: racial, social, environmental justice. And one of the things that we identified early when I started Omaha Healthy Kids was that Black children in our community were being disproportionately poisoned by lead. And also impacted by asthma triggers in their homes. And there's one zip code in particular in Omaha, in the eastern quarter of our city, where kids were being poisoned repeatedly in the same homes, in the same rental properties. So we got some grants to target those areas. So this is a huge issue for us. And we've had, I've had the opportunity to attend a number of peaceful protests in our community over the summer. And I'm very, very proud to have been endorsed by over 50 Black leaders in our community who helped me create a racial justice plan that is on our website. And this is something to me that is meaningful because I am personally tired of watching politicians show up to ribbon cuttings or parades in the northern part of our city, which is primarily our Black community, and then kind of ignore the rest of it. So you drive around North Omaha and the streets are crumbling, the housing's crap. There are businesses that have been shut down for years. And it used to be an incredibly amazing, vibrant business community filled with culture and music. And because of redlining, because of environmental contamination, because of lack of political will, and frankly, because of systemic racism, it's just been devastated. And so there are some pockets of the community that are being revitalized, but there's so much more work to do. And that's going to be one of my priorities, is fixing all the things I talked about. But we also have to start addressing income inequality in this country. And because the more we don't, the more that divide gets bigger, our country is going to be continuously unstable. And we can't allow kids to live in poverty anymore. We can't allow kids to go hungry anymore. This is about our kids, right?
Yeah, it's just, again, Bernie, I worked on Bernie's 2016 campaign. It's like, in the country, in the biggest country, the wealthiest country in the history of the world. Yeah, it's crazy that we haven't even tried to do anything about poverty. But so it warms my heart to hear you talk about this and think about it from such an intersectional lens, and from a historical lens, right? Because a lot of people, I know you're not one of them, but many people think that, oh man, like after George Floyd, this is brand new. Like, this has been happening for 400 years, So, but as people are awakened to this, it's good to see people talk about not only the intersectionality, but just like what can and should be done, like how we got here and where we go from here. So thank you for that response. Now we're going to transition to something that we always do as we head towards the end of the program. So like, I want you to put your hands forward, clasp your hands together, make wrist circles for me. So this is our hand yoga that we do for all the texting and typing that takes place, right? So take them in both directions, because I'm sure that you've been texting and typing quite a bit. So this is one of my gifts to you. And then just stretch the fingers out. There you go. A couple deep breaths. So we've done our little yoga for you today. And, you know, as I want to close or head towards closing by asking you the following question, like, what gives you hope right now? Like, what lights you up? Like, in the final 2 weeks of your campaign, what are you tapping into to finish strong?
Well, one, my team. I have one of the greatest, most incredible teams in campaign history. I think they are diverse and interesting and fun and dedicated. My field director is a dreamer. She's a DACA recipient, and I often say, you know, she's working her butt off right now to help get me elected in a country that doesn't even allow her to vote. The stakes for her are pretty high, and so she gives me a lot of hope because she's just incredible. And she just got a tiny corgi that's named Flan. So Flan gives me hope as well.
Flan,
but
nice.
You know, I think what we've seen in this, at least locally in this election, is people getting excited, not just to vote out somebody. And
Right.
and that's obviously incredibly important right now. But I'm really proud of the campaign that we built over the past 4 years and that is something that it's giving people hope, and they're reaching out to me and letting me know that I have little kids reaching out saying, you know, I think we should vote for her because she seems nice, or you know, she's helped kids before. I like that about her. So our kids are watching all of this, and they're watching all of these disgusting negative ads about me on TV, and it's such a shame, but it does give me hope when these kids see that. And I actually had a 7-year-old kid the other day come up to me and he said, I saw one ad about you on YouTube and it was clearly taken out of context. He's 7 years old. He's smarter than the Republican group that made that ad. Right. So there is a lot of hope right now. There are people who are looking for change, and not just to undo some of the things that have been done, but actually to move our country forward. So I think that I'm just hopeful. I'm hopeful that in 2 weeks things are going to look a lot different. And it's scary and it's nerve-wracking, and I think we're all kind of, you know, clenching our fists and grinding our teeth at night. But there is hope out there, and we just all have to keep working really hard, and we can never be complacent, because we were all around in 2016, and I just hope that nobody sits back and says, oh, I think he's got it or she's got it. Like, we all have to work together right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I mean, you know, yoga teachers, like, anytime you find your breath clenching, go like this. I mean, your teeth clenching, like massage the jaw. Where can people find out more about your campaign, and where to help you out?
We're at eastmanforcongress.com, on Twitter at Cara for Congress, Cara with a K, Instagram at Cara for Congress, and on Facebook at Eastman for Congress. We would love to have any help that anyone's able to give right now in these next 2 weeks. We still have a lot of money to raise because we got to keep those ads up on TV. We've got some pretty good ads coming out about my work and about some of the people that I helped in my job. So that's nice to kind of cut through the stuff that is saying I want to force people to eat tofu.
So yeah, for those of you that missed that, like, there's a negative ad saying that Cara wants to eliminate beef in Nebraska, which is kind of impossible. It's like eliminating sheep in New Zealand, right? Like, give me a break.
Exactly.
It's not even whatever. But that's how people are, right? You know, and we joked also that it's a shame that people are using tactics that may or may not have worked when I ran for 6th grade representative, but you know, that's just where we are. So it's people like us that need to like support people like her to elevate the standard of politics, so we all can have a mission-based system of government that serves all of us, not just the 1%. Thank you, dear Kara, for coming. Thank you, Dave, Dan, and Shannon for making this happen. You know, I'm proud to call you a friend, proud to have met you and stayed in touch with you. And just know, you know this, like, however I can be supportive, like, I hope this has been supportive. And like, however else I can be supportive, we're here for that. You know that.
I do.
And so coming up next is a practice inspired by a tweet that Jordan, my producer, sent me from the New York Times, where they suggested several poses to do to rest your mind to go to sleep rather than doom scrolling through your phone before you go to sleep. And I love the New York Times as much as anybody else. And I'm going to go trailblazer status on this. Like, Jordan and I thought of politics and flows like a minute ago, right? So we want to put these practices in video, not just static images. So, you know, I'm kidding, kind of. Well, you know, just watch the practice. It'll give you a great idea of how to rest in these times, because we need election protection sometimes from ourselves. So watch the practice. It's only about 10 minutes long. And we're considering maybe doing one more of these next week. So stay tuned. But if not, it has been a delight spending this electoral season with you. And remember that we are the silent majority that is beginning to speak out with such force that only change can transpire, right? And yes, voting is important, but so is staying engaged and informed with what is going on, so we transform our current system from dysfunction into a more representative system of government, representative in terms of who represents us and the values that are represented. And none of this matters if you don't take care of yourself. We must take care of us to be fully able to take care of each other and do this important work. So thank you for showing up. Thank you for fighting. And so I haven't brought these out in a while, but I have these gloves. We're going to keep fighting all the way through Election Day. Politics and Flows, Big Ideas, episode 14, over and out.
Hello, Reggie Hubbard here with Move On, but also many of you know this, Active Peace Yoga is the name of my teaching practice. And this is kind of funny, but I'm gonna do it anyway. So among some staff, we were going back and forth on Slack the other day, and my producer, Jordan, sent me a tweet that the New York Times did about rest that you can take before you go to sleep. So rather than doom scrolling on your phone before you go to sleep, like a sequence that you can do to like relieve stress in the body before you go to sleep. And I'm not very competitive anymore. Who am I kidding? But I was like, yo, like we've been talking about like merging politics. So I basically was like, man, I'm gonna do this video for our broadcast on Tuesday that is cribbing the New York Times. So shout out to the New York Times for putting yoga and wellness in Twitter for people who are doom scrolling on Twitter. And I'm not going to crib, totally give you all the respect. I'm just going to show the static images that you did in your piece in the body, or just in my body, for people who are looking for a way to wind down. And this doesn't necessarily just have to be before you go to sleep. It can be at any time that things are a little too rah, right? So you can do these things to offer stress relief and release in the body, especially if you're looking for a good night's rest. So what I have over here are all my yoga toys, right? So I have straps and tennis balls and other balls like this. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start with shoulder work, right? So in order for you to have a good night's rest, if you've been spending hours over your computer, yikes, right? So we're gonna have, so you can have a strap or a belt or a t-shirt or something, and you can just go like this. So get into the knees and just get into the body. Open up the body after hours spent at a desk or at a chair or whatever. And what this also does is, if you've been in motion, if you've been still for hours, it puts motion into the body. So you can also go like this, just opening up the shoulders from this orientation. You can close the eyes and get into the breath, right? So one technique before going to sleep, or just to offer yourself a break in between, is to go like this, or to do it more dynamically. So once the shoulders are a little bit open, I'm going to take some of these toys. So you can use a racket ball or any of these balls that I have and just get into the bottom of the feet, right? So just roll out the feet. You young folks don't have to worry about this, but when you get to be middle-aged, circulation matters. So just offer pressure on the feet, all from the ball to the heel. And you can do that with a racket ball, or this is a specialized ball that I got from a yoga company called RAD, as in like wicked cool. But we got to take care of our feet, not only for balance, but for circulation. And at the end of this practice, you'll see what I'm talking about. So when the feet are nice and limber, you'll be able to super rest. So do that for a little bit. So we worked on the shoulders, we worked on the feet. Now we're going to do cat and cow. So from cat and cow, for those of you that don't know what that is, we're here. Knees are hip distance apart, hands are shoulder width distance apart. So press tops of feet down, just to give the feet something different than this orientation. So inhale, drop the belly, arch the spine. Exhale, press the floor away, draw navel to spine, arch. Go back and forth like this. Slow and easy. Don't forget core engagement. And what we're doing is we're getting into the contours of the spine, noticing that the spine goes from the base of the neck, or the base of the skull, to the tip of the tailbone. So you can go like this a few times. The deeper the breath, the slower the pace. What I also like to do is go in circles, because the spine goes in 6 directions: forward, back, side to side, and radially. So go radial here. Again, closing the eyes and just getting into the relief and release in the body. Maybe take those the other direction. Getting into the full functionality of the spine. Do this like 4 or 5 times. And then take toes together, knees wide, child's pose. If you can, and this is what the time says, roll the forehead back and forth on a tennis ball or one of these posture balls that I have. If that's not accessible, you can use a block, or you can go like this. The goal is to release the low back and straighten the spine. So if you've got the flexibility, you can use a ball on the forehead. If you don't, you can just make subtle movements with the tailbone with deep breath to offer relief and release in the low back. You can come to stillness here as well. 4 breaths. Inhale through the nose. Exhale out the mouth. Deep breath is good for deep sleep. Inhale through the nose. Exhale out the mouth. Inhale through the nose. Exhale out the mouth. Last inhale. Exhale out the mouth. From child's pose, we're going to do thread the needle. So I'm going to start with my right arm. Again, table pose is what this is called. So weight into the left hand, inhale, right arm up. Exhale through. So this is part twist and part shoulder opener. Inhale up. Exhale through. Inhale up. Exhale through. You can go like this as many times as you want. The goal is to get into the spine, but also the shoulders, right? So I'll do 7 total. Then I'll take that on the other side. So strong right hand. Inhale, left arm up and through. For a little bit more low back release, keep core engaged. We typically dump into the low back when we sit. So if your yoga teacher doesn't cue core engagement, ask them why not. What you can also do, if you want a deeper shoulder stretch and you have the mobility, I'll start on the left side. Well, inhale, right arm up, exhale through, and you can stay here. Because what this does is it completely opens up this part of the shoulder, which when we're hunched over computers all day, you know, that can be painful. So do that for 5 to 6 breaths. And then we do that on the other side. When we're finished there, we lunge. So right knee is forward, top of left foot down. I like to make lunges active with the breath. So inhale back, exhale forward. If you want to get into the toes, turn toes under, your call. 4 or 5 of these with the breath. And then to open parts of the front of the hip and the outer right hip, stay in this deep lunge for 4 breaths. I prefer top of foot flat. Inhale through the nose. Exhale up the nose. Inhale. Exhale 2. Inhale. Exhale 3. Inhale. Exhale 4. Press into right foot. Take that on the other side. So left knee forward, top of right foot down, or toes under to open the bottom of the foot, your call. But just go back and forth. Inhale, back. Exhale forward. Back and forth. 4 or 5 of these, then stay in the lunge. Inhale through the nose. Exhale out the nose. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale 3. Last inhale. Exhale 4. Press back in the left foot. Now, to get into the shoulders deeper, inhale, arms out wide. Exhale, hug, right? Then go back and forth like this. 1, because of forced isolation, we don't get many hugs, so feel free to hug yourself. But also, when you're like this all day, we don't open up. So keep breath deep. And again, close the eyes if comfortable, because what do you need to be staring at? Rest the eyes. Then what you can do is tennis balls, or these are called therapy balls. Place them in the middle of the back. Let me scoot back so you can see. So you can place them in the shoulder blades, which feels exquisite. You can do the same motion. Make sure you breathe deep here, because you could be super tight. For more opening in the hips, place soles of feet together. Or something else, and this is straight from the Times article. You can inhale, arms up and down, snow angels, with the balls in the middle of the bat. You can also do this without any of the tools, just to get into the range of motion. Or you can stay still here. I prefer to stay still in this moment, and I'll breathe 4 times. Inhale through the nose. Exhale out the mouth. Melting tension in the shoulder. Inhale. Exhale 2. Inhale. Exhale 3. Last inhale. Exhale 4. Bring hands outside of knees, place feet flat. If you have these balls, release them. I'm going to place them in the small of my back now, roll around a bit, but also place right ankle outside of left knee. This is called figure 4. This is a release for the outer right hip. If you've got tight hips like me, you can just stay like this, or you can reach through, grab left shin, and go like this. Make sure you're breathing here, releasing tension in the legs. 3 or 4 breaths on this side before placing left foot down, right foot flat, left ankle on right knee. Let left knee fall out to the side, arms in cactus, or reach through and grab right shin. I cannot and will not because my left hip is super tight right now. But this is the gist. Mild heart opener here. Making sure the back is flat. Draw navel to spine for a little bit more to release the low back. 5 breaths or 30 seconds, the equivalent thereof. Then you can take right leg long, left leg long actually, bring right knee in, then take a twist to the side. This is at once a hip opener, digestive balancer, so this is a detoxifier, and a heart opener. Same breathing, 3 or 4. Then scoot hips to center, extend right leg long, bring hips to the left, bring left knee in, then take it across the body for the same twist. You can also dig into the outer hip here. Like I told you, my left hip is exquisitely tight at the moment, so maybe I'll move my leg a little bit or massage. 25 to 30 seconds here. Then when done, you can have feet flat, roll back and forth on the spine a bit, or make low back circles. Again, for all the sitting we do. And the way that you can either end by laying in the floor like this, or for the footwork that we did at the beginning, you can take legs up a wall or up a chair or up a couch, point and flex the feet here. And what this does is it uses gravity to offer relief to the feet, which is good for circulation, and it's just good to have a different orientation. Spend about 3 minutes here and relax. And if you follow the sequence that I just articulated, which is based on what the New York Times offered, but I also teach a lot of the same things in some of my more general classes, you should sleep like a baby. Or if you don't sleep like a baby, as someone who used to have wicked insomnia, it just takes the edge off, especially when you close your eyes. In this place, breathe deep and relax. So that is the physical demonstration of the New York Times piece with a little bit of active piece flourish. Hope that was to your liking and to your healing. Blessings and peace to you. Reggie Hubbard, over and out.
Elections matter. justice is on the ballot. Justice is on the ballot when 1 in 5 mothers has hungry children. Justice is on the ballot when millions of people just lost their jobs, many of whom did not have paid sick leave, paid family leave, many of whom don't have affordable childcare. Justice is on the ballot when we look at the disparities around whose children and where they're living geographically have access to broadband to be able to be educated at home, much less have a laptop. Justice is on the ballot when you look at the disproportionate number of African Americans and Latinos who have been afflicted with and have died from COVID-19. Justice is on the ballot when people in our country are struggling like they are right now. So we got to get everybody out to vote. We got to take back the Senate. We got to retain our majority in the House. And we need to win the White House and elect Joe Biden.